The upcoming winter storm that we are tracking will affect areas farther to the south, and I believe we could see some surprisingly high snowfall totals from this event. We will discuss precisely where that might occur as we continue, and I assure you we will provide a very detailed forecast. Everything will be clearly organized for you once we have discussed this primary system. We are also monitoring another period of interest as we look toward early next week. We will give you all the detailed information we currently have on that. Following that, we will take a deeper look into the forecast for the month of December, trying to understand the pattern that continues to bring more cold air and more chances for winter weather for the foreseeable future. A very good Wednesday evening to you. I hope you are all doing well and have had a wonderful week. If you find these updates helpful, we always appreciate when you subscribe or like the video. And as always, if there is anything I can keep in my thoughts and prayers for you, please feel free to leave a comment below. Now, let us begin tonight's detailed forecast. We continue to see some snow across the Great Lakes region and into parts of eastern Canada. This includes southern Ontario. We are also seeing moisture developing across the Midwest. This has prompted the issuance of special weather statements ahead of this band of snow for areas in Ohio, northern Kentucky, West Virginia, and neighboring states. We could receive some light snowfall accumulations from this overnight. However, the main system is the primary focus of our attention. A snowstorm has been active across Colorado, with heavy snow falling in the higher elevations of northern New Mexico. We are also observing moisture moving across the southern and central plains, including Kansas and the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. Additionally, Gulf moisture is being drawn into the system across the southeastern sections of Texas and into Louisiana. So, that provides the larger picture, but this specific area is what we are watching most closely with this approaching storm system. Regarding watches, warnings, and advisories, we do have winter weather advisories in effect for these areas shown in purple. These are newly issued for the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, for Amarillo and just west of that area. They are now under winter weather advisories. We also have special weather statements for Oklahoma City, points west, and even south of Amarillo toward Lubbock. These statements are for the potential of light snowfall accumulations. I am somewhat surprised that special weather statements have not been issued farther south for areas like Wichita Falls, which would better connect these advisory zones. I anticipate that winter weather advisories will likely be issued for this area by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, though we shall have to wait and see. In the meantime, winter storm warnings continue for the southern Front Range of Colorado and northern New Mexico. And here are those special weather statements across the Ohio Valley and the Appalachian Mountains for some light snowfall accumulations overnight. We continue to have winter weather advisories in place for the lake effect snow. Now, let us break down this storm system in detail. We will begin around midnight tonight, and please note that all times shown are in the Eastern Time Zone. If you are in the Central Time Zone, of course, simply subtract 1 hour. So, let us look at the situation in the middle of the night. We see snow beginning to form across western Oklahoma and the panhandle of Texas. Some of these developing bands could bring heavy snow, so please be aware. You can see the Gulf moisture being pulled into the system from the south, and these two elements will connect as we move forward. Now, let's advance into the very early hours of the morning, around 4 or 5 o'clock. Please take a look at this snow. You can see the darker corridors of blue between Amarillo and Oklahoma City. This will be a narrow band, not a widespread winter storm, but locations underneath it could certainly receive 1 to 3 inches of snow. As you can see, Oklahoma City should begin to see snowfall around 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. As we continue to about 7 or 8 o'clock, which is daybreak, we have this very narrow, but what I believe will be a rather intense line of snow. I would advise you to watch for this, as its intensity could take some people by surprise. The main challenge is determining exactly where this band will establish itself, but the air above is certainly cold enough for snow. There is just not an abundance of widespread moisture. Let us advance the forecast to midday, right around the lunch hour tomorrow. We will shift the entire picture farther to the east. You can see this area of winter weather here. The purple shading indicates sleet, and the blue represents snow. Even where you see green on top of the blue, it is more than likely falling as all snow. The models show a wintry mix starting to move into Little Rock. Some light snow remains over in Oklahoma, but a full-fledged wintry mix will be present midday tomorrow across central Arkansas. As we continue moving forward into tomorrow afternoon, all the precipitation to the south, shown in green and yellow, will be rain. However, on the far northern edge of this system, it will be cold enough for some snow, which brings us to Memphis, A little bit of sleet and snow is very possible for Memphis tomorrow, though I would say it is more likely just to the north of the city. As we continue, let us shift our view farther to the east and northeast. This brings us to around 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. We now see a significant wintry mix over Nashville. In fact, if this run of the forecast model is correct, let's take a closer look. This indicates some moderate snow falling around the Nashville area tomorrow night, continuing on until about midnight, which is 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time on Friday. Notice how dark that blue coloring is. That signifies heavy snow. It is possible we could see snow starting in the Tri-Cities region of Tennessee right here. You can see its location within the Tennessee Valley. However, on the northern Cumberland Plateau, north of Knoxville, this could be some heavy, wet snow. For Nashville, the latest model run is giving you a few hours of a wintry mix late tomorrow night. This heavy, wet snow extends all the way up to Beckley. You appear to be right on the line here in Bristol, with a wintry mix starting in western North Carolina near Asheville. I believe a layer of warmer air above the surface may limit accumulations there. Let us now get closer to this particular area. As we move this forward, you can see this has trended into a faster storm system, with precipitation moving in much more quickly. If we pause it right here, you can see it is snowing quite heavily just a little north of Hickory. For Charlotte and Greensboro, it is all rain at this point. However, it could start as snow. In fact, the precipitation could begin as rain, change to heavy snow, and then perhaps transition back to rain. This is around 4 o'clock on Friday morning. This is heavy sleet and snow. You can see the yellow corridors right in here, which indicate heavy precipitation moving into that colder air. This is developing into a quick but potent snowstorm for Virginia. This includes Lynchburg, Roanoke, Danville, Charlottesville, Richmond, and Fredericksburg, where it will be snowing quite steadily. This could provide a substantial accumulation of snow right at the onset of the storm. If you happen to be awake early on Friday morning, you may see some very large snowflakes. As we continue to move forward, we arrive at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and now at 7 o'clock in the morning, it is still snowing, even in Greensboro. At this point, this would be nearly an 8-hour period of snow for Greensboro if this particular model is accurate. I think that might be a slight overestimation, but I do believe this will be a storm that meets winter storm criteria. While it is not a major blizzard, I do think it will catch some people by surprise. This is some heavy snow. And if I am moving too quickly through the timeline, my apologies, I know I am covering a large area. To be clear, this is 6 o'clock Friday morning. We still have some snow active across eastern Kentucky and the southern half of West Virginia. For all of our winter weather fans watching, I certainly hope those of you in Charleston get some snow out of this. I know it appears as though the main area of snow is missing you to the south. The purple colors here indicate sleet, and any pink that you see represents freezing rain. As we keep this in motion, the system begins to climb up into the mid-Atlantic. This brings us to between 9 and 10 o'clock on Friday morning. We now see some of this light to moderate snow reaching all the way into the Washington, D.C. area. A little snow may linger in Beckley, perhaps as far south as the Tri-Cities region, but it looks like you must be in southwestern Virginia or eastern Kentucky to be in the thick of it. This timing brings a nearly 9-hour period of snow into Richmond, and the snow will attempt to spread farther north. This is the last frame from this particular model run. The snow attempts to reach Wilmington, Philadelphia, and Trenton. We will have to see just how far north this system tracks, as this is the extent of the high-resolution model's forecast. And my sincere apologies if my voice got a bit louder in that last segment. A neighbor's very loud truck started up, and they tend to let it sit for about 5 minutes. So, I had to raise my voice to be heard over that. But let us now go over the snowfall totals. I will refresh the data to see if there have been any changes. The forecast is calling for around an inch of snow in Amarillo. It also shows a little snow possible in southwestern Oklahoma, but just a very light dusting. Now, I want to show you what the high-resolution model we just reviewed is projecting. I believe it is worth noting that it forecasts an 1.5 inches of snow for Amarillo, and it highlights these banding features here. The colors you see correspond to the legend at the bottom, indicating 1 to 3 inches of snow. For Oklahoma City, this model projects almost an inch of snow. It shows 1 to 2 inches are possible south of Oklahoma City. So, whoever is under this band will see those totals. Its exact placement could shift north or south, but I do not believe it will go as far south as the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We will have to watch it carefully. Now, regarding the National Weather Service snow forecast for Arkansas, they are not currently calling for any accumulation. One of the other models, however, does show light snowfall accumulations roughly north of Little Rock and into Conway. I believe this is very possible, amounting to a few tenths of an inch, perhaps up to half an inch of snow. Therefore, I will not be surprised if we hear reports of accumulating sleet or snow in parts of Arkansas tomorrow. The situation is similar for Kentucky and Tennessee. The National Weather Service forecast is not calling for much at all, perhaps just a dusting here and there. They are projecting about a tenth of an inch in Clarksville. By contrast, if you look at the high-resolution model, it shows a solid dusting to a coating of snow from almost north of Memphis and Jackson, Tennessee, up to Clarksville and toward Cookeville. Just south of the Somerset area, the system is expected to bring a few inches of snow to southeastern Kentucky, which will certainly get things started there. Johnson City, however, is only forecast for about a tenth of an inch, which largely bypasses the Tennessee Valley. I believe areas like the southern Cumberland Plateau near Chattanooga will simply be too warm for accumulation. For those areas, it will likely be a cold rain, but we will continue to monitor it. Now, let us examine the latest snow forecast, and we will spend a moment on this. For Virginia, North Carolina, and West Virginia, you can see the projections in the blue shaded area. I hope you know your county, as we cannot list every town, but for Roanoke at this time, the forecast is calling for 1.5 inches of snow. Charlottesville is looking at about a ½ inch to 1 inch. It is important to note that for Richmond, this forecast only extends to 1 o'clock Friday afternoon, which is why we will look at more maps. Between now and then, Richmond is forecast to receive almost 1 inch of snow. The same is true for Danville. And for the area from Greensboro to Hickory, you are looking at just under a ½ inch of snow. Now, I do believe some icing will be possible in these areas as well. This particular computer model, however, is forecasting a much more significant event. It is showing heavy snowfall, with the potential for a ½ foot of snow southwest of Roanoke in those pink shaded areas. For Danville, it projects 3 inches, and for Greensboro, 2 inches. Hickory is forecast for 1.5 inches, and Richmond could see 3 inches of snow. This model indicates that southwestern and southern Virginia may be hit quite hard with a heavy, wet snow. Now, some folks might look at this and say it is unlikely to happen. I would simply urge you not to dismiss it so quickly, as I believe there is a genuine possibility some of these totals could materialize. This data only goes out to about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So, in some of these regions, the snow will still be falling at that time. Now, if we look at the official National Weather Service forecast, let us just refresh this page. It appears there are no new updates. They are taking a cautious approach, forecasting about 1 inch of snow across these areas. Please feel free to pause the video here if you need a closer look. For Clemens, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, and for the Winston-Salem area, about a ½ inch is expected. It should not be a major event for this particular area. They are, however, calling for some ice. Just a few hundredths of an inch of ice is possible, although some locations could see up to a tenth of an inch. Now, I would like to explain the science behind this initial burst of heavy snow. Alright, let's examine what we call a sounding, which is a profile of the atmosphere for an area just southwest of Roanoke in Virginia. The blue coloring indicates snow. At the surface, the temperature is 29 degrees Fahrenheit, which you see as the red number. The green number shows the dew point, which is 28 degrees. The dew point is very close to the actual air temperature, which means the atmosphere is fully saturated with moisture. For example, if it were 42 degrees outside and the dew point was nearly the same, the air would be holding as much moisture as it can. That is the exact condition we expect for southwestern Virginia during the early hours of Friday morning. This particular atmospheric reading is for approximately 1 to 2 o'clock on Friday morning. At 29 degrees, it is certainly cold enough for snow to fall. Now, if you look at this solid blue line, that represents the 32-degree freezing mark from the ground upward. The surface temperature of 29 degrees is well below that freezing point. Then, you will notice a slight bulge in the temperature line right here. We call this a warm nose, where the temperature briefly rises as you go higher in the atmosphere. For instance, at this level of 850 millibars, which is about 1 mile above the ground in this part of Virginia, you can see that warming. At 500 millibars, you are at approximately 18,000 feet. As you can see, the dew point remains very close to the air temperature all the way up. The key takeaway here is that the entire column of air from the ground up is more than cold enough to produce and sustain snow. Even with that small warm layer trying to form, the temperature never rises above 32 degrees, so the snowflakes will not melt. The column of air is completely saturated with moisture. So, to put all of that simply, the atmosphere is primed to release a great deal of snow. All of that available moisture will fall as large, beautiful snowflakes, much like what we discussed in St. Louis several days ago with that other storm system. I wanted to explain that because I believe some people are in for a significant surprise. Under these conditions, some areas could receive an inch or two of snow in just an hour or an hour and a half. This means snowfall totals could easily exceed the current forecasts. As for the areas I expect might see a surprise, I believe much of Virginia is a key area, along with parts of northwestern North Carolina. Now, let us look at the forecast snowfall totals for eastern Virginia. Richmond is forecast for about 1 inch, as is Lynchburg. As you can see, there is not much variation in these amounts, along with just a few hundredths of an inch of potential freezing rain. Moving northward to the Washington, D.C. area, the forecast is also for about 1 inch of snow. We see a little bit of snow for the Tidewater and Delmarva regions as well, generally about an inch here and there. I do believe there is potential for a surprise if more moisture can work its way into the region. The air will certainly be cold enough. The main question is whether enough moisture will be present. I also want to address my viewers in Long Island and New York City. The models are hinting at the possibility of some snow bands reaching your area, but right now, we are not expecting a significant event. I should also mention a light snow event later tonight across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. This system will bring a thin coating of snow across Illinois and Indiana, with a few tenths of an inch expected as it moves into Ohio as well. In fact, some areas, including Cincinnati, could receive up to a half-inch of snow. This will be enough to put a fresh coating on the ground. If you've seen some melting over the past day or two, this will likely cover everything with a new layer of snow across Ohio. Now, let us look ahead beyond this immediate system. We are still monitoring the period from the end of the weekend into early next week. You may recall one of the models showed a rather dramatic run with a major snowstorm for the southeast and mid-Atlantic. There is certainly energy available. We have a trough bringing energy down from the north and another piece of energy developing off the southeast coast. The models are attempting to combine these two systems. I do believe we will see some snow in the same areas that are receiving it in the next day or so, particularly in the southern and central Appalachian Mountains. There are some signs of these energies combining, but it appears it will not happen in time to create a major storm. As a result, we are left with a rain and snow mix on Monday, but the GFS model has certainly backed away from its earlier forecast. Now, what about the latest European model? It seems the latest run of the European model is not available at the moment, which is quite unusual. There may be a technical issue with the 18Z model run, as it is not loading for me. Since I do not have that data, we will refer to the previous run, which was the 12Z European model. That model showed a fairly aggressive-looking clipper system moving down, bringing some energy on Sunday morning. However, it only amounted to a chilly rain across the southeast. Again, these pieces of energy try to connect, but they do not combine successfully. There is simply not enough cold air in place to support a winter storm. By the time we reach Monday morning, the result is just a chilly rain for Georgia and South Carolina, with nothing significant developing. For now, the models have backed off this idea, but we still have not seen what that latest European model showed. The Canadian model has hinted at something, but at this point, I am not treating it as a high-confidence forecast. However, I will be watching for the potential of a rain and snow mix late Sunday into Monday night across some of the same areas that are expecting winter weather this Friday. As we look ahead to that time frame, you can see the European ensemble model is attempting to hint at the idea of some light snow in these locations. I must emphasize, however, that it is not a strong signal by any means. Moving beyond that period, what else does the forecast hold? I believe the overall pattern will be dominated by fast-moving clipper systems from the northern jet stream. Starting late this coming Saturday night, you can see one such clipper moving in, which has the potential to produce some heavy snowfall totals. It could bring some heavy snow, perhaps a few to several inches, across parts of the Midwest. However, because these systems move so quickly, that may not happen. As we continue on, that system passes, and as we head into Monday and Tuesday, another piece of energy arrives in the Great Lakes region and the upper Midwest. This one will then proceed into the Northeast, where it will provide some additional snow, adding to the seasonal totals. Following that, a very aggressive area of energy moves down, bringing colder air with it. This is a 989 millibar clipper, and you can see from the darker blue shading that it is carrying heavy snow. It will primarily impact the Great Lakes region and the Northeast as we head into Thursday of next week. After that, a large trough begins to form. This trough digs in, and it is uncertain what will result from it. It could produce a northwest flow snow event, or we could see more energy ride down along it. For now, however, it appears to be a pattern dominated by the northern stream. Then, all the way out at day 10 of the forecast, another clipper system arrives. The question remains if we will see any influence from the southern stream energy. Another way to visualize this pattern is to examine this large trough extending across the eastern United States. The blue and green colors here represent a trough, which is a significant dip in the jet stream over this part of the country. This pattern remains consistent through next week. By the middle of next week, into Thursday and Friday, another reinforcing trough moves down. This area in blue signifies a trough of low pressure. It is a dip in the jet stream that pulls down cold air and can generate energy in the atmosphere. This can result in anything from a weak to a strong storm system. At the same time, a ridge of high pressure builds over the western states. This setup allows cold air to slide down into the eastern United States, and this pattern continues. Toward the end of the forecast period, we see a bit of a ridge trying to form, but I believe that pattern will be brief. I do not believe this warm-up is going to last for an extended period. In fact, if you look at the long-range European model, it completely removes that ridge of high pressure, allowing a solid pool of cold air to re-establish itself in the higher latitudes. Now, regarding the atmospheric energy we have been discussing, as we head into Monday morning, you can observe some energy situated between the primary northern jet stream and the southern stream. We have a pocket of energy that is digging southward, and this is what could bring an unexpected weather event early next week. After that system moves through, it appears our main flow of energy will shift northward. The question remains if it will draw any moisture from the south, but for now, the predominant flow is dipping downward. Now, I will be keeping a very close watch on the pattern as we move into the latter part of next week. It is possible this dip in the jet stream could become more pronounced, which could lead to some interesting developments. For now, let us just say that late next week and the following weekend, bear watching. This is a clear signal of more energy diving farther to the south. One thing I can tell you with certainty is that these reinforcing troughs will continue to usher in progressively colder air. This forecast covers the period from tomorrow all the way through the 14th of December, a full 10-day period. The entire eastern half of the lower 48 states is expected to experience below average temperatures. The areas you see in blue and green on the map represent these colder than normal temperature forecasts. So, for example, if your average high temperature is 55 degrees, then your actual high temperatures might only reach the upper 30s or 40s. It is helpful to be aware of your average high for your specific area during this early December period. The cold air is expected to remain locked in place, but we are seeing some remarkable disagreements among the long-range models. For instance, this was the European model from earlier this afternoon, which predicted a massive blast of Arctic air across the eastern United States late next week into the following weekend. And then it showed another one following right behind. But then, if you look at the American GFS model, it shows a completely different scenario, attempting to pump a great deal of warm air across the middle of the country. It does show a small cold blast late next week, but then it builds a giant ridge of high pressure over the entire southern tier and eastern half of the country, bringing well above average temperatures. So, there is a lot of disagreement toward the end of the forecast period. At the very end of the model run, looking toward the middle of the month, it does bring in a significant amount of cold air. But for the most part, we are seeing the models vacillate back and forth. The final topic we will cover today is the Madden-Julian Oscillation, or the MJO. We have been discussing this quite a bit, as you know. Phases 6, 5, and 4 are what we consider our warm phases. Phase 7 is a transitional phase, as is Phase 3. Phases 8, 1, and 2 are our cold and wintry phases during the winter season. So, the important questions are where we are now and where we are heading. Today is the 3rd of December. And according to this chart, we are now firmly in Phase 8, and we have moved into that phase quite rapidly over the last couple of days. This projection shows us remaining there for the next couple of weeks. We might slip into the center circle, which indicates a low amplitude phase. When that happens, the influence of the MJO on our weather pattern can weaken, so the impacts might not be as significant as that phase would normally bring. But we will not concern ourselves with that possibility until it becomes necessary. Right now, we are in Phase 8, and we are projected to remain in Phase 8 for what could be a record-breaking length of time. If that occurs, we will begin to see even more adjustments toward cold and wintry outcomes for the central and eastern United States in the coming days. I made a post on social media earlier stating that I truly believe we will begin to see some significant winter storm potential appear in the model guidance over the next 7 days. We will, of course, continue to monitor this. We also have a winter storm immediately ahead of us to analyze, so we will continue to sort through the developing pattern. God bless you all, and please have a wonderful night. I also want to mention that I feel my delivery in these videos has not been as fluid over the last couple of days. When I get into a rhythm of producing 2 videos a day, I can sometimes find myself mixing up my words. For whatever reason, I have had a very difficult time starting my videos lately. There are times I have to restart them 15 or even 20 times, which can take up 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes I can spend 20 to 30 minutes, folks, just trying to begin the video. It is mostly the introduction, and it has simply been a struggle. The more I have to restart the recording, the more it seems to affect my flow later in the video. Hopefully, we can get into a better rhythm, as that tends to happen. This is something that has occurred in waves for the entire time I have had this channel. I will go for 3 or 4 weeks where I am speaking very smoothly, and then I will have a period of 3 or 4 weeks where I find myself stumbling through my words. So, if that has been a distraction for you, I sincerely apologize. I am hopeful we will get on a nice, smooth roll going forward. Have a wonderful night, and we will do this again tomorrow morning. God bless.